Today I'm going to be showing you how I built a raised flower bed with retaining wall blocks. The first step was to lay out all of my blocks where I wanted them. I laid sod here earlier this year, so I had a pretty good straight line to follow. I marked out where I was going to need to dig. I just used a shovel, but a lot of people will use spray paint if they have a large or more complex area that needs to be marked. Then I got to digging my trench. Now the area that you need to dig out needs to be about twice the width of your blocks and at least 6 inches deep. My blocks were about 6 inches wide, so my trench is about a foot across. Getting to that 6-inch depth is important to ensure you have your base material deep enough so when the ground freezes in the winter, there isn't soil that's expanding and pushing your blocks up. Once you have your trench dug out, you'll want to tamp that in really well. Since my trench was rounded a little bit, my tamper didn't reach the bottom. So I just used a 4x4 to make sure I was able to get the whole area really compact. Once I had it compact, I added my base. I had some sand with some aggregate in it left over from a previous project that I used. I added a little bit more aggregate to make it more of a true paver base. You can also use a paver base and then put leveling sand on top of that to lay your blocks in. I did about 5 inches of the base material. You'll want to tamp your base in as well. You want everything to be as compact as possible so it doesn't move over time. Once you have your base in, it's time to lay your blocks. Now this step will take quite a bit of patience. Since this will be your bottom row, you want to make sure your blocks are leveled correctly because it will make your entire wall out of level if you don't get these right. You're going to need to get your blocks leveled from front to back as well as side to side. I used a torpedo level to get the singular blocks level. You are also going to need to level the blocks with the previous blocks you laid. This will ensure your entire wall is completely level once you are done. I used a 2-foot level to level across the blocks. It's also important to check to make sure you're laying your blocks straight as you go along the front of them. I had to go back and fix the other side after I'd laid it because it started to curve in. The entire base row is going to be buried in order to keep the blocks from moving. As you can see here, it can really take a lot of adjusting in order to get these blocks level in all ways. The rubber mallet is going to be your best friend, and you can really pound these blocks in order to get them to move where you want them. It's a really tedious process, but it's just rinse and repeat once you get going. My yard is sloped, so I had to do a step in order to keep the blocks level. I figured out where I wanted my step to be ahead of time. The most important part of this is making sure the new base block makes the block on top of it level with the other blocks. Once you step down, that's going to be your new base row. You can see here where I curved my wall in and had to go back and straighten it out. After I got the bottom row in, I went back in with more sand to fill in the entire area. I packed it in between the blocks by hand up to ground level. Then I went through and brushed everything off so there was no debris for when I would be using the adhesive. I used landscaping adhesive to hold my blocks together. I have built a flower bed like this before and did not use any adhesive, and the wall has held up really well over the last 4 years. I did want to make sure this one was really solid, so I decided to use it for this project. Once you get to this part, it's pretty easy to just plug and go. The blocks do have a lip on the bottom, so they connect with the block below, and the pressure from the dirt behind them holds them in place. I added more sand to finish out this next row, and then added my final row. Now a lot of people will put rocks or some type of drainage system behind their blocks. My wall is only 2 blocks high, so I'm not super concerned about it retaining water, but that's something to consider if you are going to be building a larger wall. Now I had way too much soil in here, so I had to dig a lot of it out. It was already really high and close to the siding, which is something you want to avoid. You usually want at least 4 inches between your siding and bed. This is how my condo was built, and it has been here for a very long time, so I just made sure it was pitched away from the house. I only have about 1 to 2 inches between the bed and the siding. I put some landscaping fabric in and popped some plants in, and then added mulch. I got everything cleaned up, and this is the end result. You can see where it's sloped and starts to come out at that bottom row. I had initially planned to go 1 block higher on the wall, but I just didn't have the space with where it met the siding. Overall, I'm happy with how it turned out and glad to have another yard project complete.